Jon Jones might be the greatest mixed martial artist alive, but there's a hungry heavyweight looming who wants his crown, Tom Aspinall. The two men stand at opposite ends of a negotiating table that could reshape the UFC's most storied division. Will they finally clash for the undisputed belt? Or is this entire standoff about to erupt in a way nobody expects? Stay tuned, because the fate of the heavyweight scene hangs in the balance, and the backroom drama is heating up. Tom Aspinall isn't just riding a win streak, he's slicing through contenders in mere seconds. After a tough knee injury back, in 2022, he roared back with lightning-fast finishes that made his rise feel unstoppable. Whenever he fights, it's quick, it's decisive, and it leaves fans buzzing. For most fighters, that kind of dominance practically guarantees a title shot. Yet Aspinall isn't satisfied with interim gold anymore. He wants to be known as the true, undisputed champion, and he wants the belt to come by way of the biggest name at heavyweight. The biggest roadblock? Jon Jones. Arguably the most decorated champion in MMA history, he proved his move to heavyweight wasn't just a novelty, he actually won the belt in his very first outing at that weight. Now, rumors swirl that Jones is demanding a massive payday, possibly in the realm of tens of millions. With the UFC's broadcast rights negotiations on the horizon, the promotion is in no rush to upset one of its biggest stars. After all, Jon Jones on a pay-per-view can single-handedly boost subscriber numbers, ticket sales, and media attention. But time has a way of running out, especially when another top contender is left in limbo, itching to fight. From Tom Aspinall's vantage point, the situation is especially frustrating. He's in the prime of his career at 31 going on 32, a phase in which heavyweights historically shine. Sitting idle for months or even a year means he's potentially wasting the best years of his athletic life. Fans can see the tension building. Does Aspinall keep waiting for the official green light on a Jones fight? Or does he push the UFC to strip Jones and let him fight someone else for undisputed gold? It's a scenario that would have sounded outlandish just a few months ago, but the wheels of MMA rarely turn smoothly at heavyweight. This division has a curious track record of almost but never quite fights. Years ago, many fans believed we'd see legends like Randy Couture and Fedor Emelianenko collide in the UFC, but it never happened. More recently, the biggest what-if was Jon Jones and Francis Ngannou. Now the question is whether Aspinall versus Jones will fall into that same category. The longer negotiations drag, the more fans start to whisper about belts getting stripped or entire matchups falling apart. Of course, there's another layer to all of this, the interim title Tom Aspinall currently holds. Some might argue it's a taste of what's to come, but in Aspinall's mind, it's more like a placeholder. He's not interested in just defending an interim belt. He wants the real thing, the undeniable recognition of being the best heavyweight on the planet. If the UFC says, "We can't secure Jones, but we'll give you a different fight," Aspinall could stand his ground and say, "No Jones, no deal." That puts pressure on the UFC to either pony up for Jones's demands or risk having a restless Aspinall force their hand. It's all happening in a division that's notoriously shallow compared to its lighter counterparts. At lightweight or welterweight, the UFC might shuffle contenders around without skipping a beat. But heavyweight? It thrives on a select few who command huge interest. Lose a star like Jones or fail to push a rising force like Aspinall, and the division suddenly looks very thin. That's why the UFC is in a tight spot. They need Jon Jones for blockbuster pay-per-views, but they can't afford to keep Aspinall on the sidelines for too long. Insiders report that Aspinall and his team have scheduled serious talks with the UFC brass, hoping to nail down a proper timeline. Meanwhile, Jones has hinted he has only a couple of fights left in him before he rides off into the sunset, satisfied with his legacy. He knows any fight he takes now could be his last, and a lucrative one. The UFC, for its part, has historically played the long game. They could choose to wait for a lucrative event at Madison Square Garden or another marquee date, banking on hype and negotiations to align perfectly for a mega fight. But every month that ticks by ratchets up the tension. Aspinall's patience may run out, and if it does, It could force the UFC to consider stripping Jones or setting up a new undisputed clash without him. For fans, this drama is half the fun and half the frustration. At best, we get a monumental clash between a legendary champion and the scariest new heavyweight on the roster. At worst, the belt remains in limbo, with statements from both sides, promising the fight is coming soon, yet never actually materializing. There's a reason heavyweight fights feel so special. Each one can make or break a career in a single knockout blow. That's the appeal. That's the risk. Tom Aspinall is on the cusp of greatness. Jon Jones might be eyeing retirement. And the UFC stands at a crossroads. Every angle of this saga feels like it could change the sport. Will we see Aspinall test himself against arguably the GOAT at heavyweight? Or will negotiations fall apart, leaving the UFC no choice but to move on? Or worse yet, leaving the division in yet another endless waiting game? All we can do is watch and speculate, but one thing's for sure. If Jones versus Aspinall happens, it could be the most electrifying heavyweight showdown in years. If it doesn't, we'll be looking at one of the biggest missed opportunities in modern MMA. Until then, fans are left guessing and fighters are left waiting. The UFC loves keeping its cards close, but eventually the big reveal has to come, because in the end, even the world's greatest promotion can't keep the king and the challenger apart forever. Which side are you on? Are you rooting for the unstoppable force of Tom Aspinall to finally claim undisputed gold? Or hoping that Jon Jones cements his place in history with another masterful performance? Drop your thoughts, keep your eyes peeled for any major announcements, and buckle up, because the heavyweight division is about to get very, very interesting.